Hello and welcome to Top Shelf Board Games. I'm Hubba.
I'm Sabrina.
And today we're doing our first impressions of Francis Drake. We've played Francis Drake exactly one time, and we wanted to give our thoughts of it, what we think about it, and let you look at the game a little bit. So let's go ahead and do a quick little view of it. Maybe. Alright, so this is the board of Francis Drake. You'll see there's already a game that was in session. This is the ending of our game, basically, is what it was. The ships have been moved out onto the board, so you can kind of see the way the game looks as you play. The game is played over 3 voyages, and each voyage is broken up into 2 different phases. The first phase of the game takes place up here at the top, gathering different resources for your voyage. You'll be going around collecting guns, which are the black cubes. You'll be collecting supplies, which are the little barrels. And you'll be collecting crew members and using these resources to fight the different areas. You can also pick up the purple cubes that you can use to trade for goods at the different trade ports. You can use your gray cubes to defeat the different forts and towns. Also, you'll need guns to defeat them. Out here, if you've upgraded your ship to a bigger one, then you can go ahead and attack these ships that are out at sea. And these require a certain amount of guns. And then there's also a token that always determines if there's any more guns that are needed. Sometimes there's none, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2. It just depends on the tokens that get placed out. The Admiral, he actually allows you to determine where those tokens are placed on the board, so you'll have an advantage knowing where the extra guns are going to be and where they're not. Likewise, the Governor is used to place out the crew tokens. So if you have the Governor, you'll know where those are going to be at and have an advantage in that way. But you'll continue to do that first round of collecting the resources and then going out and placing your mission markers, which are these, onto the different places that you want to travel around to defeat, conquer, and trade with. And after 3 rounds, whoever has the most points is going to win the game. Alright, so with that in mind, let's talk about the game a little bit. Component-wise, you've seen some of the pieces. The components are really solid. The production of this game is through the roof.
We'll let him talk and I'll be right back.
Look at the little man that wants to join in on this. The components are through the roof. Eagle Games has done a great job with the components. You know, these 3D chests are really cool. If you've seen our unboxing, you've already been able to take a look at these. You got the different gem pieces, these little glass tokens. All the components are a good thick cardboard, which is nice. The best part is that everything popped out really easy. If you watch the unboxing, you'll see that pieces were falling out of the punch outs. That's always really good because that means you're not going to have any of that tearing, that fraying that can happen with a game that's been poorly produced. You don't have any of that issue here. So really fantastic job there. I'll go ahead and start with my kind of opinions on it, and Sabrina can go ahead and jump in when she gets back. Oh, and I wanted to show these too. The barrels, these are your supplies. These are pretty cool. Little wooden barrels. Your supplies actually determine how far out into the world that you can travel. I didn't show that on my phone, but the more supply barrels that you have, the farther into the new world that you can travel to get better goods. I'm collecting these rubies, which are worth more points at the end of the game. So we did a 2-player game, and the game is set up for 3 to 5 players. We did a 2-player game where we each took 2 ships, which worked actually pretty well. It was a little overwhelming to manage the 2 ships, but it actually worked pretty well.
But it wasn't bad, though.
No, it wasn't bad. For me, you know, I had one ship that I kind of dedicated towards trading, and then the other ship I set up more for going out and doing conquests and fighting the different areas. and trying to maximize the points on both spectrums as far as that goes. And it worked pretty well. It made it to where I didn't have to think too far in advance on, the strategies I had to have. I just knew that the trade ship needed to have trade goods and then needed at least one or two supplies to go do that.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to add?
Yeah, go ahead.
There? Oh, so I kind of did the same thing. Well, the first round, since I had to get used to how everything worked, I kind of had to switch things up on the second round. But I did the same thing kind of where I had the trade ship as the main focus on one of the ships. And then the other ship kind of went and did everything else too. Mm-hmm. But the first round, it was kind of like a mix of everything because we didn't really know what everything was. So, but it wasn't, it wasn't too bad though, like some other variant games. So you can play this as 2 players and it's completely fine.
Right. The worker placement aspect where you're taking these little tokens and placing them onto the tiles actually works really well. I didn't mention it in the little preview thing, but whenever you place one of your markers down, the next one you place has to be in front of the one that you previously placed. And so that it provides some interesting dilemmas as far as choices you got to make in your turn. Because you might want to jump down ahead to get those supplies or get the trade goods. But if you jump too far, you're not going to be able to go back and get anything you skip over.
Right, but you don't want to miss that opportunity because someone else could get that before you too.
Right. Trade goods, for instance, are really pretty hard to come by in the game. There's only one trade good tile on the game. The queen will also give you a trade good, and the informer will give you a trade good. That's the only way you can get any trade goods in the game. So going to trade, the trade route strategy can be pretty tough, especially if multiple people are going for that same strategy. Where we both had ships that were kind of focused on the trade goods. Mm-hmm. It's a very first come first serve type of setup, and it was really competitive and difficult to get those goods.
Well, and you have to make sure because I needed 2 items, so I had to make sure that I can get my ships in the right spot where they needed to be when we placed them out on the board, and that you didn't steal them from me. Right. So I had to strategically make sure that I didn't lose my opportunity because I got 52 points because I had 2 sets. So I had to really think about that. So I knew instantly what red had to do. And then green, I was like, we'll figure this out. So
when we were first playing the game, the first voyage, after that first voyage was done, it felt like going the combat route, you were going to have a pretty big advantage.
But right, because I was really behind.
Right. Blue was able to jump way out in front, mainly because I was able to collect some of these red rubies and several gold items. And actually the ship that went more the combat route, I collected 5 rubies and 5 gold tokens with that ship, which gave me a ton of points. And he ended up actually having the most points out of all the ships in the game. But Sabrina's trade ship was right on his heels. She had 2 full sets of trade goods, which gave her 52 points at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. But if I would have conquested a little bit better, thought about conquering the different ships and the forts and the cities, right, I might have gotten better points.
Right. I didn't mention that for every town, fort, and ship that you defeat, the more of each variety of those you defeat, the more points you get is at the end of the conquest as well, or the voyage, which is really cool, and that's what you started to do towards the end.
Right, which I started doing better scores. So if I would have done that, I was only, 10, 11 points behind? Yeah. So if I would have been a little bit more aware of it, I could have probably come out.
And that's what I wanted to point out, too. With the 2-player game, each of us playing 2 ships, our final score was 195 to 184. So a really close game, considering we were 2 ships being added together, those points. Mm-hmm. Really close game. It didn't feel like it, though. The combat went a little bit better in my favor, and I think that's what gave me that edge. I was able to get a lot of those gold and rubies.
Well, there's a lot of things that, because you kept getting the first place and getting those rubies, you were getting the 5 points, and I wasn't. So that didn't help.
Well, and that's the other part of the second half of a round is the placing your mission disc, which is actually really cool. placing your mission disc really, really affects how well you're going to do during that voyage. Because, like Sabrina was saying, I had a 1 in a space, and she would put her 1 there as well. But I got to go first because I was the first one to go out to sea. So I was able to break those tiebreakers. And because of that, I was able to get several more points than she was. I was able to collect those rubies a lot easier than she was.
Right. Well, I wasn't very efficient on my first round. I didn't have enough crew members to go out and do the fighting, and so I kind of missed three turns.
Yeah.
Because I didn't plan as well as I didn't know.
Yeah.
So, but I think the more I play this game, the better it'll be because I have a better idea of what each tile does and what I just have a better idea.
While we were playing, it felt kind of samey each voyage. Like it felt like I was still gathering just about the same amount of black cubes as I was, same amount of gray cubes each round.
I didn't feel that way.
But you might have grabbed 1 or 2 cubes less of each of those colors, but you're still gaining about the same amount if you stick with the same attacking strategy. You're gaining about the same amount of cubes. But the way that you go about getting them is different each voyage, because these tiles you'll place on the board to mix up the order in which these tiles appear in the game.
Well, and the order that each person places makes a big difference.
Right. So changing the order of these tiles, and then obviously the player interaction there is gonna, the way you go about getting basically the same amount of cubes is a slightly different puzzle each time. Mm-hmm. So I really like that a lot. That was really cool. It was a slightly different puzzle.
I liked it because I was forced to have to think differently each time. Like, I wouldn't normally go for the queen or something, but because he took certain spots, then it's like, oh, well, I have to go for the queen because I have to have this item or something. So It made me think out of my comfort zone. Right. Does that make sense? So, anyways, but I liked that because I had to think, okay, well, this person really needs this for this item, so, but I don't want him to get it, so I better hurry and bump up and get it. But I don't want to miss these ones. So there's a lot to it, but I like it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the game a lot.
And I liked the little treasure chests I had to kind of keep putting them back in because, I kept trying to play with it and they kept falling out. And I didn't want him to know how many I had, so.
It's a fairly lengthy game. I think it took us about 2.5 hours. Granted, that was also learning the game as well, reading through some of the rules to verify things.
Yeah, we had kid interruptions.
So you could easily get this done in about what the box says, 90 to 120 minutes. That's pretty accurate.
But I wasn't bored.
No, I wasn't bored at all, and I think it's because of that the puzzle aspect of the first half of the round of putting your tokens down to collect the resources. It's a little bit of a puzzle every time, and it's always different. So really like it for that. I think it's a great game.
It looks overwhelming, but it's really not that bad. And I always say that. But, the board, the thing I did have a hard time, because of my belly for pregnancy, but I couldn't get close to the board to reach, and so he had to do everything for me. So it's a
massive board.
You can't reach and look, so that's the only thing that I have a problem with. But that's not the game's problem. It's my problem.
So, if you've been checking out this game, I would highly recommend picking it up. If you like worker placements and you like a little bit of a puzzle aspect to a game, this game has it. If you like a little bit of combat, the combat is, discard a few cubes and you are successful in that combat.
You're guaranteed.
It has that.
You have your cubes. Yeah.
My favorite part of the game, though, is the second half of placing these mission discs down. Because the way you place these will totally make or break the supplies that you were able to pick up. How efficient you're able to do it.
True. For what order. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, that's true. Well, I was going to say, he didn't get this game for a long time because it says 3 to 5 players.
Right.
So we didn't get it forever, and then finally he found a variant, and when we could play 2 players.
Right.
So, Yeah.
So yeah, check the game out. You know, if you like this video series, you know, like our Facebook page so you can see more videos like this.
And leave comments because we're waiting for comments to respond to too.
This is a good place to come ask questions. You know, this is a live session, so you can ask questions about the game. We can answer them. We're going to try to work a little bit harder to see if we can't maybe get, you know, maybe designers to show up to these Facebook Lives, or even, you know, just people that are part of the company. So when you're here, you can also ask us questions, but maybe be able to ask them questions as well.
Right, and if we don't know the answer, then they can, you know, they can type in comments as well.
So also like us or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the how to play video for this game. We strive to get you how to play videos that are short, to the point, and give you enough information to get playing the game, you know, without spending a lot of time in front of, you know, watching a video. So
right. Well, and if you haven't played your game in a long time and you don't want to read the rule book again, just watch the video and refresh.
Right. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Bye. And stop. How do I stop?
Finish.